I set the table for our 12th wedding anniversary. 2 plates, 2 wine glasses, candles waiting to be lit, and a letter that would end my marriage forever. His phone was open on the counter. A message from someone named Lucia glowed on the screen. Last night was everything. When can I see you again? I cannot stop thinking about how you touched me. 25 words. That is all it took to rewrite 12 years of my life. But here is the part that still shocks people when I tell this story. I did not scream. I did not cry. I did not confront him when he came out of the shower 5 minutes later. Instead, I smiled, handed him his coffee, and said, "Have a good day at work." And then I did something he never saw coming. I cooked his favorite meal. I set the table with our wedding china. I wrote a 4-sentence letter, placed my wedding ring on top of it, and I walked out of that apartment without saying a single word. By the time he came home that night, holding flowers he bought out of guilt and champagne he thought would fix everything, I was 400 miles away, checking into a hotel under my mother's maiden name, finally allowing myself to fall apart. Have you ever looked at your life and suddenly realized you have been living someone else's version of it? Have you ever felt so invisible in your own home that you wondered if you could disappear and no one would notice until the bills needed paying? I lived that life for 12 years, shrinking myself, silencing my dreams, convincing myself that this was what love looked like. But love does not look like coming home to silence. Love does not look like finding another woman's messages on your husband's laptop. And love certainly does not look like being forgotten on the day you promised each other forever. What I did next would either destroy me or save me. And I am here to tell you exactly what happened. Before we go any further, I need you to do something. If you have ever felt unseen, unheard, or undervalued in a relationship, drop a comment below. Just one word: invisible. Let me know I am not alone in this. And if this story resonates with you, that subscribe button is right there, because this is just the beginning, and I promise you, what happens next will change the way you see everything. My name is Nadia, and this is the story of how I lost myself, found the truth, and finally walked away from the life that was slowly killing me. Stay with me until the end. The first time I saw Damien, I was 24 years old and convinced I was going to change the world. I was working at a mid-sized architecture firm downtown, fresh out of graduate school, hungry, ambitious, the kind of young woman who stayed late not because she had to, but because she genuinely believed that every line she drew mattered, that buildings could heal communities, that design could change lives. I still remember the exact moment he walked into the conference room for a client meeting. Tall, confident, the kind of man who made the air in the room feel different just by existing in it. He caught me staring, and instead of looking away, he smiled. After the meeting, he found me by the coffee machine. "You are the one who designed the community center concept, right?" I nodded, suddenly aware of how my heart was beating. "I could tell," he said. "There is something different about your work. Most architects design buildings. You design feelings." I laughed. That is either the best compliment I have ever received or the strangest pickup line. He grinned. Why can't it be both? That was Damien. Charming when he wanted to be. Brilliant when it served him. The kind of man who made you feel like you were the only person in the room, even when the room was full. We went to dinner that Friday, then Saturday, then every day the following week. By the end of the month, I was in love. The stupid, reckless, all-consuming kind of love that makes you forget that you ever existed as a separate person. My friends noticed the change immediately. My best friend from college, Renee, called me one night about 3 months in. "You sound different," she said. "Different how?" "I do not know. Softer, like you were trying to take up less space." I laughed it off. "I am just happy, Renee." "Is that so hard to believe?" She paused. "No. I just hope he is making you happy for the right reasons." I did not understand what she meant then. It would take me 12 years to figure it out. The wedding was beautiful. Small ceremony in a garden overlooking the water. 60 guests. Handwritten vows that made everyone cry. I still remember what I said to him that day. "Damien, I give you everything I am. My dreams, my fears, my whole heart. I promise to build a life with you that is stronger than any structure I could ever design." He squeezed my hands and smiled. "Nadia, you are my home. Wherever you are, that is where I belong." Everyone said we were perfect together, and for a while, I believed them. The honeymoon was 2 weeks in Tuscany. Rolling hills, ancient architecture, wine that tasted like sunshine and history. On our last night there, we sat on a balcony watching the sunset paint the sky in shades of gold and rose. "I want to remember this forever," I said. He pulled me close. "We will come back here someday. On our 20th anniversary, our 30th, our 50th. I still have the wine from that trip. I was saving it, waiting for a moment that felt worthy of opening it. I never imagined that moment would be the night I said goodbye. The first year of marriage was exactly what I had hoped for. We were a team, partners, building something together. But somewhere around year 3, the cracks started to form. Small ones, almost invisible. The Copenhagen Fellowship came first. I had applied on a whim, never expecting to actually be selected. But there it was. A letter on thick cream paper, an invitation to spend a year studying sustainable design in one of the most innovative architectural communities in the world. I ran to show Damien the moment he got home. "You will not believe this. I got in. I actually got in." His face did something I had never seen before. A flash of something that looked almost like fear, quickly replaced by a careful smile. "That is amazing," he said. "But a whole year?" I nodded, already imagining cobblestone streets and Scandinavian design studios. "What about us?" he asked. "What about my job? I cannot just relocate for a year." I felt the first crack form in my chest. We talked about it for days, weeks, every conversation circling back to the same conclusion. "Maybe the timing is just wrong," he said one night. "There will be other opportunities, but there would not be. Not like this one." And somewhere deep inside, I knew that. Still, I turned it down. For us. For him. Because that is what marriage meant, right? Compromise. Sacrifice. Putting the partnership above individual dreams. I told myself I was being mature. Being a good wife. Now, I know I was just learning to disappear. Year 4 brought the promotion. Lead designer on a major urban renewal project. My name on the building. The culmination of everything I had worked for since graduate school. The hours were brutal. 60, 70 hours a week. But I'd never felt more alive. Until Damien started making comments. "Do you really need to work this late again? I hardly see you anymore. It feels like this job is more important to you than I am." I tried to explain. "This is temporary. Once the project is finished, things will go back to normal." But he shook his head. "You said the same thing about the last project. And the one before that. When does it end, Nadia?" The answer he wanted was now. "It ends now. Choose me. Choose us." So I did. I handed the project to a colleague. Stepped back. Told myself it was the right decision. 6 months later, that colleague won a regional design award for my project, my concept, my vision. I watched from the audience as she gave her acceptance speech. And I felt something inside me go quiet. A small death I could not name. When I got home that night, Damien was watching television. "How was the ceremony?" he asked without looking up. "Fine," I said. "Just fine." He nodded, already focused on something else. And I realized he had not even remembered it was happening. Year 7, year 8, year 9. The changes were so gradual, I almost did not notice them. Like a building settling into its foundation, shifting so slowly that you only see the cracks when the light hits them just right. We stopped talking about the future. Our conversations became transactions. "Did you pay the electricity bill? What time is dinner? Do not forget your mother's birthday." "I love you" became a reflex instead of a revelation. Words said on autopilot as we walked out the door. Words that cost nothing because they meant nothing. I started noticing the distance. The way he slept facing away from me. The way his eyes went somewhere else when I was speaking. The way he checked his phone constantly, always angling the screen away. I asked once, "Is everything okay? You seem distracted lately." He looked up, annoyed. "I am fine. Just work stuff. You know how it is." But I did not know, because he had stopped telling me. I brought it up to my sister Vera one afternoon over coffee. "Maybe I am being paranoid," I said. "Every marriage goes through phases like this, right?" Vera stirred her drink slowly. "What does your gut tell you?" "That something is wrong. But when I try to name it, I cannot. It is like trying to catch smoke. She looked at me with the steady gaze she had inherited from our grandmother. Nadia, you have always trusted your instincts with your work. Why do you not trust them with your life? I did not have an answer. That night, I tried something different. I waited until Damien came home. Made his favorite dinner. Lit candles. Poured wine. This is nice, he said, looking around with mild surprise. What is the occasion? No occasion. I just thought we could reconnect. We have been feeling distant lately. His fork paused midway to his mouth. Distant? Yes. I feel like we are just going through the motions. I miss you. I miss us. He set his fork down. Nadia, I do not know what you want from me. I go to work. I come home. I am here every night. What more do you need? I need you to be present, I said. I need you to look at me like you actually see me. He sighed. The long-suffering sigh of a man who believed he was being unreasonable, asked for basic emotional connection. You are overcomplicating things, he said. We are fine. Every couple goes through phases like this. It does not mean anything is wrong. I wanted to believe him. So I did. But late that night, when he thought I was asleep, I heard him in the bathroom, talking softly on the phone, laughing in a way he had not laughed with me in years. I cannot wait to see you tomorrow, he whispered. Then silence. Then the flush of a toilet to cover his tracks. I lay in the dark, heart hammering, and told myself it must be a coworker, a friend, something innocent, because the alternative was unthinkable. Year 10. Year 11. The late nights became constant. Twice a week. 3 times. Sometimes more. Client dinners, he would say. Networking events. You know how this industry is. I stopped asking questions because the answers hurt too much. I stopped waiting up because watching the clock only made the silence louder. My design work, which I had scaled back so dramatically for him, had quietly become a lifeline. I started taking freelance projects in the evenings. Small commissions, residential renovations, nothing like the ambitious work of my 20s, but something that was mine. He noticed eventually. What is this? He asked one night, finding sketches spread across the dining room table. Some freelance work. A client wants to renovate their kitchen. He picked up a drawing, examined it with the look of someone appraising something slightly beneath them. Your little hobby is really keeping you busy these days. Little hobby. The words landed like small stones against glass. Not enough to shatter anything, just enough to leave marks. But I smiled and nodded and said yes, it is a nice distraction, because that is what I had learned to do. Absorb, deflect, survive. What I did not tell him was that my little hobby had grown into a small business, that clients were referring their friends, that I had a separate bank account now, one with my name alone on it, that every deposit into that account felt like a brick in a wall I was building without knowing why. Some part of me was preparing. Even then, year 12 arrived on a Monday morning. I woke before the alarm. 5:32. The bedroom still dark, the spring light just beginning to soften the edges of the curtains. Damien slept beside me, facing away. The distance between us in that king-sized bed felt like an ocean. I lay there for a moment, watching the slow rise and fall of his shoulders, trying to remember the last time I had reached for him in the night, trying to remember the last time he had reached for me. The silence was so complete, I could hear my own heartbeat. 12 years, I thought. In 12 years, you are supposed to know someone completely. You are supposed to have built something unshakable. I slipped out of bed without waking him and padded to the kitchen. The apartment was quiet except for the hum of the refrigerator. I moved through the space like a ghost, muscle memory guiding me through the morning routine I could have done with my eyes closed. Coffee first, strong, the way he liked it, though I preferred mine lighter. Then the ingredients, the lamb shank I'd been marinating overnight, the vegetables waiting to be chopped, the spices arranged in careful rows. I had been planning this dinner for weeks. Our wedding china, still boxed in the back of the cabinet because he never wanted to risk breaking it. The cloth napkins from our registry, used twice in 12 years. The Tuscan wine, saved since our honeymoon, waiting for a moment worthy of opening it. This was going to be that moment. Our anniversary. A reset. A chance to find our way back to each other. I arranged the cutting board, selected the sharpest knife, began slicing vegetables with the precision I brought to everything I designed. If I could just create the perfect setting, I thought. If I could just remind him of what we used to be. It seems foolish now, trying to solve a fundamental disconnection with roasted lamb and expensive wine. But that is what desperate hope looks like. It looks like a woman standing in her kitchen at dawn, believing that one perfect meal might save a 12-year marriage. Damien emerged at 7:45. He was already half-dressed in his work shirt, phone in hand, thumb scrolling absently as he walked. He brushed a kiss against my forehead. The kind of kiss that costs nothing because it requires nothing. No eye contact, no intention, just a gesture made out of habit. "Morning," he said. "Morning," I replied. I kept my voice neutral, waiting to see if he would remember. He poured coffee, checked his phone, frowned at something on the screen. I watched him, counting the seconds. 5, 10, 15. He did not look up. "Do you know what today is?" I finally asked, unable to wait any longer. He frowned at his screen, tapped something, then glanced up with the distracted half-smile I had grown to recognize as his "I am not really listening" face. "Thursday?" "Thursday. Not our anniversary. Not 12 years since you promised me forever. Not the day we stood in that garden and vowed to build a life together. Thursday." My hands tightened around my coffee mug, but I kept my face neutral. "I am making dinner tonight," I said carefully. "Something special. Can you be home by 7? He was already looking at his phone again. "Should be fine. Got a few things at the office, but I will try." "Try." He grabbed his jacket from the hook by the door, checked his watch, patted his pockets for his keys. "Wait," I said. "Do not forget this." I handed him his travel mug, the coffee I had made exactly the way he liked it. He took it without looking, already halfway out the door. "Thanks. See you tonight." The door clicked shut behind him. I stood alone in our kitchen, holding a cold mug, staring at the space where he had been standing. He did not remember. After 12 years, after everything, he did not even remember. And somehow, that hurt more than anything that came next. I set down my mug, turned back to the counter, prepared to continue with the dinner preparations I had been foolish enough to plan. That is when I noticed his laptop. It was open on the kitchen island, where he had been checking emails while drinking his coffee. The screen was still lit, his email account still visible. I should not have looked. In 12 years of marriage, I had never invaded his privacy. Trust was the foundation, was it not? That was what we had always said. But something had shifted in me that morning. Some thread that had been fraying for years finally snapped. I walked over to the counter, looked down at the screen, and there it was, bold, unread, a message from someone named Lucia. My hand reached out before my brain could stop it. I clicked. The message opened. "Last night was everything. When can I see you again? I cannot stop thinking about how you touched me. The way you looked at me made me feel like I was the only woman in the world. I know this is complicated, but I have never felt this way before. Please, tell me you feel it too." I stopped breathing. The words blurred, then sharpened, then blurred again. I read them once, twice, 3 times, as if repetition might change their meaning, as if staring hard enough might transform them into something innocent. But there was no innocent explanation for this, no ambiguity, no room for denial. Last night was everything. The night he had said he would be late because of client meetings. I cannot stop thinking about how you touched me, while I was home alone, eating dinner in front of the television, wondering when our marriage had become so quiet. "Please tell me you feel it too," he had told her. Of course he had told her. This was not a one-sided infatuation. This was a conversation between 2 people who were already deep into something. I sat down slowly, placed my hands flat on the counter, focused on breathing. In, out, in, out. My body knew what had happened. My lungs forgot how to work. My heart was hammering so hard I could feel it in my temples. But my mind had gone strangely calm, like the eye of a hurricane. Perfect stillness surrounded by destruction. All those nights he came home late. All those calls he took in other rooms. All those times he looked at me like I was furniture he had grown tired of rearranging. It all made sense now. Terrible, crystalline sense. I had not been imagining things. I had not been paranoid or insecure or crazy, the way he had so often implied when I asked questions. I had been right. And somehow, the relief of finally knowing was almost as strong as the devastation of what I knew. I do not know how long I sat there. Maybe 5 minutes. Maybe 30. Time had become meaningless. Eventually, I stood up, closed the laptop, walked to the window, and looked out at the city below. The world was still moving. Cars, people, the ordinary rhythm of an ordinary Thursday morning. None of them knew that my life had just shattered into pieces too small to count. I could confront him, call him right now, demand an explanation, scream and cry, and beg him to tell me it was not what it looked like. But I knew what would happen. I had seen it before with friends who had discovered infidelity, the denials, the gaslighting, the way he would turn it around on me. Why were you looking at my computer? You are overreacting. It was just a stupid mistake. Can we not move past this? He would cry. He would apologize. He would promise to do better. And I would stay, because that is what I had been trained to do. Absorb, deflect, survive. Not this time. Something had crystallized in me during those minutes of sitting at the counter, staring at words that rewrote my entire life. Not anger. Not yet. That would come later. What I felt was clarity, the kind of clarity that only comes when you have finally stopped lying to yourself. This was not a mistake. This was a pattern. This was who he was. And I was done. I looked around our apartment, the furniture we had picked together, the photographs on the walls, the small touches that made it look like a home shared by two people who loved each other. All of it was a lie. A beautiful, carefully designed lie that I had helped build and maintain. But I was an architect. I knew how to take things apart as well as put them together. I walked back to the kitchen, looked at the ingredients still waiting to be prepared, and I made a decision that would change everything. I was going to cook his anniversary dinner anyway. I was going to set the table with our wedding china. I was going to leave the meal ready, beautiful, perfect. And then I was going to disappear. Not in anger, not in chaos. In silence, in certainty. I was going to remove myself from his life so completely that he would never have the chance to lie his way back into my trust. He would come home expecting to find his wife waiting with apologies for whatever imagined slight had made things awkward lately. Instead, he would find an empty chair, a cold meal, and a letter that said everything I would never say out loud. It was petty. It was calculated. It was the most powerful thing I could think to do. And I was ready. The next few hours moved in a strange blur of hyper-focus and attachment, like I was watching myself from somewhere outside my body, observing a woman who knew exactly what she needed to do. I continued cooking. The lamb went into the oven, fragrant with rosemary and garlic. I arranged the vegetables on the baking tray with careful precision. I uncorked the Tuscan wine and set it aside to breathe. Each action was deliberate, intentional. I was not creating a celebration. I was creating a crime scene. At 2 o'clock, I went to the small office I had claimed as my own. This room had always been mine. The one space in the apartment that still felt like me. Design sketches pinned to the walls. Books on sustainable architecture stacked on every surface. The drafting table where I still worked on my little hobby when Damien thought I was wasting time. He had never understood what this room meant to me. He never asked about the projects, never looked at the drawings, never noticed when I was excited about a new commission. Your little hobby, those 2 words had cut deeper than he ever knew. Every time he said them, another piece of me went quiet. But that little hobby had become something else while he was not paying attention. A legitimate business, a growing client list, a savings account with my name alone on it. He did not know about that account. He did not know that for the past 2 years, I had been quietly building a foundation under a marriage I was beginning to doubt. I had not done it consciously, not at first, but some part of me had known. Some instinct had whispered that I might need an escape route someday. Today was that day. I sat down at my desk, pulled out a single sheet of paper, and wrote. The words came easily. 4 sentences. No accusations, no anger, just the truth. Finally spoken. 12 years ago, I gave you everything I had. Today, I am taking myself back. Do not look for me. The woman you married no longer exists. I read it once, twice. It was not enough. How could 4 sentences contain 12 years of compromise and loss? How could 29 words explain the slow erosion of everything I used to be? But it was all I had the strength to say. And maybe that was enough. Maybe the silence would say the rest. I folded the paper carefully, slipped it into an envelope, wrote his name on the front in my careful handwriting. Then I went to the bedroom. The suitcase was in the back of the closet, behind the boxes of things we had accumulated over the years. I pulled it out and placed it on the bed. One suitcase. That was all I would take. Everything else could stay. I packed clothes first, things I actually liked wearing. Not the outfits I had chosen to complement his preferences. Not the muted colors he said were more sophisticated. Actual clothes that felt like me. My grandmother's pearls went into a small pouch. They were the only jewelry that mattered. She had given them to me before she died, pressing them into my hands with a look that said more than words. "Never let anyone make you forget who you are," she had whispered. I had forgotten anyway, but maybe it was not too late to remember. My passport, the savings account statements, my laptop with all my design files. I looked around the room, trying to think if there was anything else I needed. There were photographs everywhere. Our wedding day, vacations, holidays with family, 12 years of memories frozen in frames. I left them all. The jewelry he had given me over the years went back in the drawer. The watch for our 5th anniversary. The bracelet for our 10th. Objects meant to represent love that had slowly been replaced by obligation. I did not want them. I did not want anything that reminded me of who I had become in this apartment. When the suitcase was zipped, I carried it to the front door. Then I returned to the kitchen. The table was set now. I had used the wedding china, the cloth napkins, the crystal wine glasses we had received as gifts and never used. 2 places, 2 plates, 2 glasses. A meal that would be ready in exactly 90 minutes. I placed the envelope in the center of the table. Then I reached for my left hand. The ring came off easier than I expected. After 12 years, I thought it would resist. I thought there would be some physical reluctance, some recognition that this was not meant to happen. But it slipped off smooth and easy, as if even the ring knew it was time. I placed it on top of the envelope. The diamond caught the afternoon light, throwing tiny rainbows across the white tablecloth. Such a small thing to represent such enormous promises. He had picked this ring. I had told him I did not need anything flashy. Something simple. Something that would not get in the way when I was working with my hands. He had chosen a diamond anyway, because it was what he wanted, because it made him look generous, because everything in our marriage had always been about what he wanted. I stood there for a long moment, looking at the table, the perfect setting for a celebration that would never happen. It was beautiful, magazine-worthy, a scene that said everything a happy marriage was supposed to look like. I thought about all the dinners I had cooked in this kitchen, all the meals eaten in silence, all the conversations that became transactions, all the nights I had gone to bed wondering if this was really what the rest of my life was going to look like. This was my answer. Not screaming, not accusations, not giving him the satisfaction of watching me fall apart. Just silence, just absence, just the devastating eloquence of an empty chair. I picked up my suitcase, took one last look around. Then I walked out the door and locked it behind me. The elevator ride down felt like 100 years. The lobby passed in a blur. The parking garage smelled like concrete and gasoline. I put my suitcase in the trunk of my car, sat in the driver's seat, placed my hands on the steering wheel. And for the first time since reading that message, I allowed myself to feel. It started as a tremor, a shaking in my hands that spread to my arms, my shoulders, my whole body. I was leaving. I was actually leaving. 12 years of my life. Everything I had built. Everything I had sacrificed for. Gone. But I did not cry. Not yet. There would be time for that later. Right now, I needed to think clearly. I needed to drive. I pulled up directions on my phone. A mountain town 400 miles away. I had visited once, years before Damien, during a solo road trip when I still knew who I was. It had felt like home then. Maybe it could feel like home again. I started the car, pulled out of the garage, watched our building shrink in my rearview mirror. The skyline of the city I had lived in for a decade grew smaller and smaller until it was just a silhouette on the horizon. And then, it was gone. I drove through the afternoon, through the early evening, through the sunset that painted the sky in shades of gold and pink. The radio stayed off. I did not want distraction. I wanted to sit with what I had done, to feel the weight of it settling into my bones. Somewhere around hour 3, my phone buzzed. I glanced at the screen. Damien. I did not answer. It buzzed again, and again, and again. I pulled over at a rest stop, took out my phone, and stared at the notifications. 17 missed calls, 12 text messages. Nadia, where are you? I came home and you are not here. What is this letter? Please call me. This is not funny. Call me back. Nadia, I am serious. Where are you? I read them all without feeling anything. These were the words of a man who had just realized he had lost something, not the words of a man who understood why. I powered off the phone, removed the SIM card, dropped it in the trash can outside the rest stop bathroom. Then I got back in the car and kept driving. The hotel was small and unremarkable, exactly what I needed. I checked in under my mother's maiden name, paid cash, asked for a room on the highest floor. The woman at the front desk looked at my single suitcase, my absent wedding ring, my carefully neutral expression. She did not ask questions. The room was simple, clean, anonymous, the kind of room that could belong to anyone. I set down my suitcase, closed the curtains, sat on the edge of the bed, and finally, I allowed myself to break. The crying came in waves, deep shuddering sobs that felt like they were being pulled from somewhere at the very center of my body. I cried for the woman I had been at 24, walking down an aisle toward a man she thought she would grow old with. I cried for Copenhagen, for the fellowship I had given up because he could not imagine a year apart. I cried for the promotion, for the project that had been mine and became someone else's because he needed me to be smaller. I cried for every dinner eaten alone while he was with someone else, every I love you that had become a lie. Every time I had looked in the mirror and seen a stranger, I cried for the dreams I had set aside one by one, until I could not remember what I had wanted before I wanted him. I cried until there was nothing left, until my body was empty and exhausted and hollow. And then I stopped. I went to the bathroom, washed my face, looked at my reflection in the harsh fluorescent light. My eyes were swollen. My face was blotchy. I looked terrible. But underneath the damage, there was something else, something I had not seen in years. Clarity, resolution, the face of a woman who had finally stopped lying to herself. I ordered room service, ate without tasting, opened my laptop. By midnight, I had found 3 apartments for rent in the mountain town I was driving toward. By 2 in the morning, I had scheduled viewings for the end of the week. By 4, I was asleep. And for the first time in years, I did not dream about him at all. This is where I need to tell you what happened while I was driving through the night, what Damien found when he came home. I was not there to witness it, but my sister Vera told me everything, every detail he shared when he showed up at her door 3 days later, desperate for answers. He came home at 8:47, nearly 2 hours late. He had stopped to buy flowers, roses, my supposed favorite, though he had gotten the color wrong. He had felt guilty, apparently, not about Lucia, just about forgetting, about being late, about being the husband who took too long to remember their anniversary. The champagne was meant to smooth things over, the sheepish smile was meant to disarm. He unlocked the door, stepped inside, called my name. Nadia? I brought flowers. Silence. He walked further into the apartment, looking around with growing confusion. The candles were unlit. The kitchen was spotless, but the smell of roasted lamb hung in the air. He found the dining room next, the table, set perfectly. 2 plates, 2 wine glasses, wedding china neither of us had touched in years, and in the center an envelope with his name on it, a gold ring catching the light on top. Vera said he stood there for 3 full minutes before touching anything, like his body understood before his brain caught up, like he already knew what he was going to find. He picked up the envelope, slid open the flap, unfolded the letter. 4 sentences, 29 words. He read it once, twice, 3 times, as if the words might change if he just concentrated hard enough. Vera said his hands were shaking by the time he put the letter down. He looked at the ring, picked it up, held it in his palm. Such a small thing to represent such enormous promises. He tried calling me then, 17 times according to his phone records. Every call went to voicemail. He sent texts, emails, checked my social media, which I had already deleted. Nothing. I had vanished like smoke. He paced the apartment, Vera said, going from room to room, looking for clues, looking for explanations. He found nothing. I had been thorough. I had taken only what mattered, left behind only what did not. He ended up back in the dining room, staring at the meal I had prepared. The lamb was cold now. The vegetables were congealing. The wine had been breathing for hours. A perfect anniversary dinner for no one. That is when his phone buzzed. A message from Lucia. "Hey, you were supposed to text me tonight. Is everything okay? I am worried about you." Vera said. That was the moment everything finally clicked. He remembered leaving his laptop open that morning. Remembered me being quieter than usual. Remembered the way I had said have a good day without quite meeting his eyes. He scrolled through his messages with Lucia. Every "I miss you" and "last night was amazing" and "when can I see you again" suddenly felt like evidence at a crime scene. She had seen them. She had known. And she had left anyway. Not screaming. Not demanding explanations. Not giving him the chance to lie his way back into her trust. Just silence. Just absence. The most devastating response he could imagine. Vera said he called her that night, crying, begging her to tell him where I was. I do not know what happened. 1 minute everything was fine, and now she is gone. Vera, please. You have to tell me where she is. I need to explain. Explain what? Vera asked. He paused. It is not what she thinks. It was a mistake. One stupid mistake. Vera laughed. Damien, you know I know my sister better than anyone. If she left like this, it was not a mistake. It was a pattern. He did not respond. She is not coming back, is she? Vera was quiet for a moment. Then she said the words that would echo in his head for months. No, she is not. And honestly, good for her. She hung up on him. He sat in that apartment alone all night, surrounded by the remnants of a marriage he had destroyed with his own choices. The lamb stayed on the table. The wine went undrunk. The candles were never lit. And somewhere 400 miles away, I was waking up to a new day and a new life, with no idea that the man I had left behind was finally beginning to understand what he had lost. The mountain town was everything I needed it to be. Small, quiet, far enough from everything I'd known that I could breathe for the first time in years. I rented a temporary apartment on the 3rd floor of an old building that smelled like pine and coffee. The windows overlooked the main street, and if I craned my neck, I could see the mountains rising in the distance. Every morning, I woke without an alarm. Every evening, I walked trails that wound through forests and emerged onto cliffs with views that made me feel infinitely small and infinitely free. I did not know anyone. No one knew me. It was lonely sometimes, but it was my loneliness. Not the loneliness of sharing a home with someone who had stopped seeing me. Not the loneliness of being present, but invisible. This was different. This was chosen. 2 weeks after I arrived, I found the storefront. It was empty. A for lease sign in the window. The previous tenant had been a florist who had moved to the city. I pressed my face to the glass, looking at the space inside. Open floor plan. Big windows. Good bones. Something stirred in my chest. An idea taking shape. I called the number on the sign. Scheduled a viewing for that afternoon. The landlord was a woman in her 60s named Marion, who had lived in this town her whole life. "You are new here," she observed, unlocking the door. "I just arrived a couple of weeks ago, running from something or running towards something." I considered the question. Maybe both. She nodded, like that was the right answer. The space was perfect. I could see exactly what it could become. A design studio. Sustainable architecture for people who wanted homes that honored the land. Everything I had wanted to do before I learned to make myself smaller. I signed the lease that afternoon. The money came from my savings account. The one Damien did not know existed. The one I had built slowly over years of freelance work and quiet deposits. My little hobby, I thought, signing the paperwork. Look at it now. The renovation took 6 weeks. I did some of the work myself. Painting walls late into the night. Building shelves with my own hands. Hanging lights that cast warm pools of gold across the concrete floors. There was something healing about physical labor. Something that felt like reclaiming myself with every swing of a hammer. I hired contractors for the things I could not do alone. Electrical, plumbing, the structural work that required expertise. Everyone who worked on the project seemed surprised that I knew what I was talking about. "You know your stuff," one of them said. "Most clients just tell us what they want and disappear." "I am an architect," I said. "This is what I do." It felt strange to say it out loud. For years, that identity had been diminished. Your little hobby, your side project, your distraction. But here, it was just who I was. No qualifications, no apologies. The studio opened in early autumn. I called it simply Nadia Reyes Design, my maiden name, the name I had been born with, before I took his and lost myself in the process. The first client was a retired couple who wanted to renovate their mountain cabin. They had seen my work somehow, a friend of a friend, a passing recommendation. "We want something that feels connected to the land," the wife said, "not just sitting on top of it. Part of it." I knew exactly what she meant. The project was small, but it was mine. And when they saw the final designs, they cried. "This is exactly what we imagined," the husband said. "How did you know?" I smiled. Because that is what good design does. It translates feeling into form. They referred their friends, who referred their friends, who referred their friends. Within 3 months, I had more work than I could handle. Within 6, I had hired an assistant. Within a year, I was featured in a regional design magazine. "Local architect combines sustainability with soul," the headline read. I saved that article, framed it, hung it in my studio where I could see it every day. Not because I needed external validation, but because it reminded me of what was possible when I stopped shrinking. While I was building my new life, Damien was tearing apart our old one trying to find me. Vera kept me updated, though she was careful never to reveal my location. He showed up at her apartment at least a dozen times, sometimes crying, sometimes angry, sometimes with elaborate plans to win me back. "Just tell me where she is," he would beg. "I will fix this. I will do whatever it takes." Vera never budged. "She does not want to be found, Damien. That is the whole point. But she is my wife." "No," Vera said. "She was your wife. And you lost that right the moment you decided she was not enough." He hired a private investigator. Vera told me about that too, warned me to be careful with my digital footprint. But I had been thorough. Cash transactions, new email addresses, a complete absence from social media. I had become a ghost, and ghosts do not get found unless they want to be. The social media campaign was the worst part. Vera sent me screenshots. Damien's posts, written to make himself look like the victim. "Missing my wife. If anyone has seen her, please reach out." Still no word. I am so worried. I just want to know she is okay. I love her so much. The comments were full of sympathy. Poor guy. How devastating. His wife must be mentally unstable to leave like that. Not one mention of why I left. Not one hint of what he had done. He was rewriting the story, making himself the protagonist of a tragedy he had authored. I read every post, feeling nothing. These were the words of a man who still did not understand, who thought the problem was my leaving, not his betrayal. I closed the screenshots, went back to my work. He could have his narrative. I was too busy building my own. 8 months after I left, something unexpected happened. I was in my studio, reviewing designs for a new project, when the door chimed. I looked up, expecting a scheduled client. Instead, I saw a man I did not recognize. Tall, early 40s. The kind of face that looked thoughtful rather than handsome. "I am sorry," he said, stepping inside. "I am looking for an architect. Someone recommended you, but I did not call ahead. Is this a bad time?" I set down my pencil. "Not at all. How can I help you?" He introduced himself as Julian, a novelist who had moved to the mountains to write his next book. "I need a cabin," he said. "Something small. Something that will help me focus. I am tired of renting places that feel like they belong to someone else." I nodded, already seeing possibilities. We spent the next hour talking about what he wanted. Not just the physical structure, but how he wanted to feel when he walked through the door. "I want silence without loneliness," he said. "Does that make sense?" I smiled. "It makes perfect sense." He scheduled a follow-up consultation. We shook hands. He left, and I stood in my studio, feeling something I could not quite name. Not attraction, not yet, but curiosity. It had been so long since anyone had talked to me the way he did. Asking questions, actually listening to the answers, building on what I said instead of waiting for his turn to speak. It felt like being seen. The cabin project became more than just a commission. Julian came to the studio every week, sometimes more. We would spend hours going over designs, but the conversations always drifted into other territory. He asked about my background, my philosophy, why I had moved to this town. I gave him the edited version at first, the safe version. I needed a fresh start, I said, a chance to remember who I was. He nodded like he understood. I came here for similar reasons, he said. My last book was a disaster, not commercially. Critically, it did fine, but I hated every word of it. I realized I'd been writing what other people wanted instead of what I needed to say. He looked at me. Sometimes you have to burn everything down to find out what is worth rebuilding. I stared at him for a long moment. Yes, I said quietly. Exactly that. Weeks passed. The cabin design took shape, and so did something between us. I caught myself looking forward to his visits, choosing better clothes without admitting why, laughing more easily than I had in years. But I was afraid. The last time I had let someone in, I had lost myself completely. I had shrunk and compromised and disappeared until there was almost nothing left. What if it happened again? What if this was just another version of the same pattern? One evening, Julian came to the studio with a bottle of wine and a question. "The designs are finished," he said. "I could not be happier with them, but I was wondering if you would let me take you to dinner. As a thank you." I hesitated. "Just dinner," he added quickly. "I know you have reasons to be careful. I am not asking for anything else." Something in his voice made me believe him. "Okay," I said. "Just dinner." The restaurant was small, intimate. Windows looking out over the valley as the sun set behind the mountains. We talked about his writing, my work, the lives we had built in this town far from everything we used to know. And then, somewhere between the appetizer and the main course, I found myself telling him everything. About Damien, about the marriage, about finding those messages, and walking away without a word. "I do not know why I'm telling you this," I said. "We barely know each other." He was quiet for a moment. "Maybe that is exactly why," he said. "Sometimes it is easier to tell the truth to someone who only knows who you are now, not who you used to be." I felt tears prick my eyes. For the first time in months, they were not tears of grief. He reached across the table, not grabbing my hand, just placing his palm up, an invitation. "I need you to know something," he said. "What you did, leaving like that, it takes extraordinary courage. Most people stay in situations that are killing them because they are afraid of the unknown. You chose the unknown. That is not weakness. That is strength." I looked at his hand, then at his face, and I made a choice. I placed my hand in his. Not forever, not even for now, just for this moment, just to see what it felt like. His fingers closed gently around mine, and for the first time in years, I did not feel like I was disappearing. I need you to hear this part clearly. Julian did not save me. I saved myself. The work of rebuilding was mine. The courage to leave was mine. The studio, the life, the identity I rediscovered, all of it came from me. But Julian reminded me of something I had forgotten. That connection does not have to mean erasure. That letting someone in does not have to mean letting yourself go. We took things slowly, painfully slowly at times. I flinched at unexpected touches, tensed when he got too close too fast. Found myself searching for warning signs that were not there. He never pushed, never made me feel broken for being careful. "Your boundaries make sense," he said one night. "You are not damaged. You are smart." I cried that night, but they were healing tears. We had been together for 4 months when the letter arrived. It came to the studio. Someone in my old life must have talked, given up an address they were not supposed to share. I recognized the handwriting immediately. Damien. My hands shook as I opened it. Pages. He had written pages. I have spent months trying to understand what happened. I know I made mistakes. I know I hurt you. But you hurt me too by leaving without giving me a chance to explain. I read that line twice, feeling something rise in my chest. I hurt him by refusing to be hurt anymore. The letter continued. Pages of apologies that were not quite apologies. Explanations that were really excuses. Promises that rang hollow because I had heard them all before. "I know we could be happy again if you just gave us another chance. Remember our wedding day? Remember what we promised each other? And then at the very end, I still love you. I never stopped. Please come home." Let me make this right. I sat with the letter for a long time. Once, these words would have destroyed me. Once I would have sobbed and doubted myself and wondered if maybe I had been too harsh. But I was not that woman anymore. I read the letter one more time, noted the subtle blame, the manipulation disguised as vulnerability, the complete absence of accountability. Then I took the letter outside to the fire pit I had installed behind the studio. I struck a match, held it to the paper, watched the flames consume word after word after word. The smoke rose into the mountain air. The ashes scattered, and I felt nothing but peace. This was not anger. This was not revenge. This was simply the final chapter of a story that no longer belonged to me. Julian found me later, staring at the dying embers. "Everything okay?" he asked. I turned to look at him, at this man who saw me clearly and wanted me anyway, at this life I had built from the wreckage of everything I had lost. "Everything is fine," I said, and I meant it. "Let me tell you where I am now. The studio has 3 employees, a waiting list of clients, recognition that extends beyond this region. My cabin, the one I designed for myself, sits on a hillside overlooking the valley. Every morning I wake to mountains and silence, and the knowledge that this space belongs entirely to me. Julian is here too, most nights, but he has his own cabin just down the road, his own space, his own life. We are together without being consumed by each other, connected without being dependent. He is not the source of my happiness. He is a beautiful addition to a life I built entirely on my own. Sometimes, late at night, I think about Damien. I wonder if he ever told Lucia the truth. I wonder if she eventually saw the cracks I spent so long refusing to acknowledge. I wonder if he lies awake sometimes, replaying that anniversary morning. The laptop left open, the message I was never supposed to see, the choice that cost him everything. But mostly, I do not think about him at all. Because here is what I have finally understood. The best revenge is not making someone suffer. It is becoming so whole, so complete, so genuinely at peace that their existence stops mattering to your happiness. He took up space in my life for 12 years. He does not get to take up space in my thoughts forever. If you have stayed with me until this moment, I need you to hear something. I set a table for a marriage that had already died. I placed my ring on a letter that said goodbye to everything I had known. And I walked into a life that was finally, fully mine. That is not weakness. That is not running away. That is choosing yourself when everyone expects you to stay. If you are standing on the edge of your own impossible decision right now, wondering if you have the strength to leave, wondering if you deserve better, wondering if there is anything left of the person you used to be, you do. You do. There is. The courage is already inside you. It has been there all along, waiting for you to stop shrinking long enough to feel it. Now I have one final request. If this story moved you, I need you to do something. Drop a comment below. Tell me your story. Tell me what you survived. Tell me what you are still surviving. You are not alone in this. None of us are. Hit that subscribe button if you have not already. Not for me. For you. For the reminder that there are stories like this one. Stories about courage and survival and the radical act of choosing yourself. Share this video with someone who needs to hear it. You never know whose life might change because of a story that helped them finally feel seen. And remember, you do not owe anyone your suffering. You do not owe anyone your smallness. The only person you owe anything to is the person you are becoming. I set a table for 2. I walked away alone, and I discovered that alone was exactly where I needed to be to finally become myself. Thank you for staying until the end. This story was for you. The next chapter is yours to write.